My name is Victor Furman. Some call me The Voice. I've always been fascinated with human nature, spirituality, science, and the crossroads at which they meet. Join me now and we will explore these topics and so much more with fascinating guests, authors, and experts who will guide us to Destination Unlimited. See if this description fits you. You are bright, talented, have amazing gifts, and want to share them with your coworkers, your community, or even the world. You're also a perfectionist who hesitates to share your work until it is above reproach, an overachiever who takes on too many tasks simultaneously, and as a result of these traits, you procrastinate and lose direction. Is there a way you can turn this around, fulfill your dreams, and be successful? My guest this week on Destination Unlimited, Sam Bennett, knows well the attributes I just described. She lived them and found a simple, easy, and fun way to turn them around. Sam created the Organized Artist Company to help creative people get unstuck and achieve their goals. She's a writer, actor, teacher, and creativity productivity specialist who has counseled thousands of artists and entrepreneurs on their way to success. Sam is the author of Get It Done, and she joins us this evening to share her new book, Start Right Where You Are. Welcome, Sam Bennett. Good evening, Sam.
Hi, Victor. Hi, everybody. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for joining us. So as I mentioned in the introduction, you've lived the frustrating life described about 19 years ago. You were depressed, broke, exhausted, and fed up with yourself. What happened to change all of this?
You know, I would love to tell you that it was like one big lightning bolt moment that just shifted everything. But it was actually a series of very small things that sort of all piled up on each other had a kind of miraculous effect. Probably the most important thought I had was right at the beginning when I realized I had to stop waiting to be happy in the future. I was doing that thing that everybody does, like, well, if I get this gig, well, if I hit this goal weight, well, if I make this kind of money, then it'll be okay. And sometimes I would hit those goals and sometimes I wouldn't, but it wasn't making me any happier. So I realized I needed to change my focus from maybe someday later to right now. How can I be calmer, happier, more joyful right now, like this moment now?
And what came into your life at that point to help achieve that?
Well, like a lot of things, once you make a step, it often feels like you take a couple of tiny steps and the universe sort of comes rushing at you. I read a bunch of books that helped. I tried a bunch of different strategies and mindsets and techniques, and some of them helped. And it took me from, crying on a couch in Sherman Oaks, California to, living by the beach, and I have my own business. I get to talk to you. Like, life is sweet. Wonderful.
Now, self-help books and programs have been around for about 60 or 70 years. Your experience has been that they actually work. Please explain.
Yeah, well, they work when you're ready for them to work. They work when you're motivated. I think a lot of people read and participate in self-help stuff kind of for entertainment value, which is fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. That criticism that sometimes gets lobbied of like, when you read all these books, you go to all these workshops, like self-knowledge is something that's finite, like you're going to get it one day. I think it's fine to just do it for entertainment. But if you really want to see your life change, then you have to start participating in the information in a slightly different way, because otherwise it's like reading about swimming.
Yeah. How do you make that change? How do you open yourself to change?
Well, that's a great question. How do you open yourself to change?
Do you have to get to the bottom? The old expression is you get to the bottom before you can see what it's like to look up.
I think that might be it. I hate to say it, but I think it might be true. I think there's something about the way we're made up as humans that we have to wait for it to get bad enough. And once it gets just too painful to stay where we are, then we move and change. And like I said, it can be very subtle. It's not like you've got to, just reinvent everything. In fact, most of the stuff I talk about in the book are very small, little 1-degree changes. I think sometimes one of the things that keeps people stuck, or certainly kept me stuck, was the question, what do I want, can feel kind of overwhelming.
Yeah.
You know, like, what do I want? I don't know. What do you mean? What do you want? What do you want me to want? What can I do for you? Let's talk about that.
Absolutely.
Right.
I understand completely. And as you said, sometimes when people look at self-help books and programs, they see them as daunting, as something that requires major life changes and a tremendous amount of focus and concentration. But in your new book, Start Right Where You Are, you talk about these small shifts and not cataclysmic changes in the right direction. How so?
Yeah, so even just that what do I want question, which, like I said, can keep you stuck for years, to instead make that a more immediate question and maybe shift it to something like, how can I make this moment more me? How can I make this moment more me? How can I make this conversation more me? How can I make this email more me? This outfit, this dinner, this experience I'm having right now? Like, how can I just bring just a little bit more of myself to this moment and be just a little bit more real, a little bit more authentic, and a little bit more plugged in? And it can be amazing how the changes that can bring. And even, I mean, we've had the experience of, like, I don't know, I always think of being in line at the airline counter and, you know, they're trying to rebook you on the flight, or, you know, you're feeling like just like some not a person.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you sort of have a moment with the person behind the counter. You know, maybe you make a joke, or maybe they say something, or you find something in common. And then it's like, oh, we're just real people here together in this situation.
So you're talking about opening up a dialogue that's an authentic dialogue, be it with someone else or with yourself.
Exactly.
And in doing so, we have this tendency, I think professionally, I know that in the work that I do professionally, there's this tendency to want to create a communication that is on a professional level, and sometimes that professional level divorces our inner self from our true self, our authentic self from the communication, and we're talking about turning that around.
Yeah, and I'm not saying be unprofessional or, you know, suddenly, you know, strip naked and let your freak flag fly, although maybe, you know. But really just, you know, and whatever it means for you, it's going to be different for everybody. You know, for some people, it's going to be leaning into, honestly, how shy and quiet they are. And for some people, it's going to mean making more jokes. And for some people, it's going to mean giving that compliment that maybe you might feel shy to give. Or letting someone know how much you appreciate them in a way that you might otherwise hold back from doing. And there isn't a right way. You know, there isn't a way to do it. There's just your way to do it. And I think, just again, to pose the question, how can I make this more me? And that's really confusing. Just think of the opposite. We all know how it feels when we feel not ourselves.
Absolutely.
We're not allowed to be ourselves.
Absolutely.
Like, that's a terrible feeling. That's a very depressing feeling. So just whatever the reverse of that is, whatever the reverse of not being allowed to be yourself, like, lean into that.
In sales, we call that engagement, engaging the customer.
That's right. And, you know, Daniel Pink wrote a great book called To Sell is Human, in which he maintains that kind of all we do is sell.
Absolutely. Whether we're selling a product or selling ourselves or selling an idea.
You're right. Selling the concept, like, oh, let's go to the 9 o'clock movie instead of the 8. You know, you're trying to convince people of things. You're trying to convince yourself of things. Selling is really just good storytelling.
Now, how does our early programming as children affect our ability to make these changes?
Well, you know, a lot of us are not exactly members of the Happy Childhood Club. And there may be some early programming, some voices in your head that say you're just not allowed to be this way. You know, you're not allowed to be creative. You're not allowed to be loud, be loving, be whatever it is that you are. And that can take a little work. You know, that can take a little work. And sometimes it can, there's some sort of imagination games and stuff in the book. One of my favorite exercises, can I give you one of my favorites?
Please.
Yeah, because there's like 66, so it's a little like picking your favorite child, but this is kind of my favorite child. When you're stuck emotionally, or you're stuck by some story in the past, to make some 5-minute art about it. So that means get out a piece of paper or do a dance or sing a song or get out your Sculpey clay and what does it look like to be so mad? What does it look like to feel heartbroken? What does it look like to, have your third grade teacher tell you don't have any talent? What is the experience of that, and how can you just just get it out? And when you do that, two things happen. One, feelings just want to be felt. Feelings just want to be felt, and once a feeling's been felt, it can get promoted and get a better job. And second of all, once you get that feeling out, you can sort of get a different perspective on it. You can start to interact with it in a different way. And it's amazing I had a client one time we were working on some financial stuff, and she started to get upset, and she's, wait, I need to make some 5-minute art about it. And she drew this big black bird that took up the whole page. She's like, she sort of looked at me and was like, I'm furious. She's like, I didn't even realize how angry I was. Yeah. I'm like, good. Now we can really start to deal with the feeling, and then we can solve the problem of the finances once those, the emotional adrenaline has been discharged.
So bringing those negative feelings out into the three-dimensional world, into something that you can visualize and see in front of you, is so helpful.
So helpful.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't have to be good. It can be bad art, and you can throw it away afterwards. Just play around with it. Just have fun.
My guest this evening on Destination Unlimited, Sam Bennett, author of the new book, Start Right Where You Are. We'll be back with Sam and more of these wonderful ideas after these messages on the OMTimes radio network.
OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Circle of Hearts Radio is a sanctuary on the airwaves. Join me, Grandmother Elia, in the circle on Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern as I share information to both enlighten and nourish your soul.
You're not wired to have a response to this sound. You're neutral to it, and you can hear it repeatedly without feeling anything. But when we introduce a new stimulus, save the food, we've achieved pulling a natural or inborn response from you. Save the food, because 40% of all food in the US never gets eaten. Save the food. Cook it, store it, share it. Just don't waste it. For tips and recipes, visit savethefood.com. Brought to you by NRDC and the Ad Council.
Every Tuesday on Living with Moxie, join Shefali Burns and Donna Martouge in conversations designed to take you to the next level, where we highlight ideas, resources, and strategies that provide you with the leverage you require to meet and exceed your business and personal goals. Each week on Living with Moxie, we will lead conversations related to success, achievement, fulfillment, and extraordinary, vibrant living. Are you ready to live with Moxie? Join us.
And we're back on Destination Unlimited. My guest this evening, Sam Bennett, author of the book, Start Right Where You Are. So, Sam, what are some of the biggest obstacles people, and especially creative people, face in making changes?
I think not knowing where to start, having too many ideas, or what the world thinks of as too many ideas. There's no such thing as too many ideas. You're a creative person. You have a lot of ideas. It's a beautiful thing. So, stop punishing yourself for it and start appreciating the flow of your ideas. I think that idea that there's some right way to do it will keep people stuck. And that's I think that's a residue from school. School teaches us that there's a right way. School teaches us that we're supposed to know the answers in advance. right? That's how you do well on a test, is you know the answers in advance. You may even know the questions in advance. But, life is not like that. Creativity is not like that. Love is not like that. You've got to just start. And when you're just starting, think of yourself as being in kind of the sparkly breadcrumb stage, Like, just really start to follow your intuition and take a couple of steps and then see how it goes. Because sometimes you take a couple of steps and it's a lot of knees and elbows, it's miscommunication, it's not really vibing, and you're not feeling good about it. Then you go, aha, now I have new information. This is not the right time for this project. I'm not feeling good about it. This isn't the right time. Maybe not never, but not right now.
Absolutely. How much of our formative? I know when I'm in my early 60s, and I know when I was in school, prior to going to formal education, I had a very furtive imagination and creative mind, and the tendency in my education, at least back in those days, in the late 50s and early 60s, was to move away from that imagination and creation and turn to the logical side of the brain, to mathematics and formula and reading, and to plug things in to fit. Should education feature more or draw out more of our creative skills?
I think it has to. I think if we're going to survive, it has to. I mean, logic is useful for some things. It's very good for some things, but there's a lot of things it is not very good at. And I think we try and look to logic or lean on logic when logic doesn't really apply. And that learning to trust your intuition, which is, according to many neuropsychologists now, it's really just deep pattern recognition. Like, we're actually just processing a lot of information before we know we've processed it. So you sort of, know something without knowing it. Mm-hmm. You knowing without cognition. That's a very reliable decision maker. Actually, it turns out that our intuition is way better at decisions than quote unquote logic can be. And we know that, it's like marrying somebody who looks good on paper, right? That never works out right. Yeah. Right. So learning to trust our intuition, learning to trust our own creativity and our own creative ideas, like that little thought you have, that little idea that won't leave you alone, that's still sort of tugging on your sleeve, that's it. That's your engraved invitation. Your desire, your feeling, that little maybe idea, that's it. That's enough to start.
I can speak to this directly because I have, as many people who do what I do, I have a day job in professional industry and in technical sales, and throughout the day, I get thoughts and ideas from the other side of my life, from the creative, intuitive, spiritual side of my life, and I'll jot them down on a piece of paper, and I'll come home from my day's work, which is usually a very extensive and long day, and then look at that list of papers and say, okay, tomorrow, and tomorrow never comes. How do we get beyond that?
Yeah. This tendency we have to sort of take care of business first and take care of everything for everybody else first, right? We get everything done for everybody else. But the stuff we know would really make a difference to us, the things that we know would really light us up, would really make us happy, would really make a difference in our lives, in our health, in our bottom line, in our spiritual health, those things, we just never get to them. So you've got to move that stuff up to the top of the list. You've got to make that stuff the priority. So even if you're waking up just 10 minutes earlier to spend a little time on whatever it is, your novel, your guitar playing, your prayer practice, your daydreaming even, whatever it is that you really love. And I know there's this feeling in the world of oh, well, that would be selfish. I can't take that time for myself. That would be selfish. But here's what's really selfish. What's really selfish is you walking around, or me walking around, exhausted, stressed out, underfed, with no sense of humor, and tired. The rest of us have to deal with you when you're like that, and it's miserable. Absolutely.
I know that. I know that very well.
Right? You forget to eat lunch, and all of a sudden you're snapping at someone. This is not generous behavior. When, however, you show up fed, rested, cuddled, meditated, creatively fulfilled, walked, patted, whatever, you're bringing your best self to the world. You bring your best self to your job. You bring your best self to your kids. You can be present, and you're there, and you can listen, and you don't take things so personally, and you have a sense of humor and you have good ideas. Like, we love you that way. Can you imagine if everybody showed up like that?
Yep.
What
Absolutely.
a world. So it's the opposite of selfish. Doing those stuff that lights you up is the opposite of selfish.
I actually recently said to someone, and continue to say, that my day job pays my salary and my quote-unquote night job pays my solary. And the solary is what I want to focus on at this stage of my life, and something that I'm going to be doing on a go-forward basis.
And I got to tell you, Victor, speaking as an entrepreneur, I love it that my business feels like the world's greatest art project. Like, even the accountings, even doing the bookkeeping, even, writing the emails and doing the website stuff and all, because it's pretty much just, me, and then I've got some freelance people who work with me on my team, but it's pretty much just me. And it's so much fun, but only because I keep thinking of it as an art project.
Absolutely. If you change your perspective, then you change the energy that you put into that perspective.
And I'm building a business that actually is a functioning reflection of my values. So my business is actually a force for good in the world, or what I perceive to be good in the world.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now, many of us feel overwhelmed by daily professional and personal schedules and responsibilities, whether they be real or perceived. What's your number one bit of advice for us?
Get the cell phone out of the bedroom. Get the cell phone out of the bedroom. Give yourself back the gift of waking up in the morning. Like that moment, that moment before you open your eyes and before you're anybody. Like, you're not anybody's mom, you're not anybody's boss, you're not anybody's partner, you're just that you that you've always been, even when you were a little kid. And like, your brain does beautiful things in that couple of minutes between waking and sleeping. Like, it's still, the editorial side hasn't quite woken up yet, and the dream side is kind of putting things together in weird ways, and just the animal pleasure of like stretching and rolling over and the cool side of the pillow, and like, give yourself that moment of re-entering the daily world in a civilized way. Like, there's nothing happening on your phone that cannot wait for a couple of minutes while you wake up like a person.
I can testify to the fact that that is a very effective and wonderful thing to do, because I do that myself intuitively and naturally on a daily basis. I give myself that couple of minutes between the wake state and the schedule state and the dreamy state and the I am here and I am me state, and then I actually have a meditation practice right after that before I begin my day. So yes, absolutely.
I'm right. That's exactly how I do it too. I do a little stretch just in bed, like not exercise stretching, just stretching. And it feels so good. And yeah, I do my little prayer practice. And, and I know people are like, oh, but I use it as an alarm. Go buy an alarm clock. They still sell them. Go buy an alarm clock. They work great. And, if you're somebody who needs to be, maybe you've got teenagers or something, you're like, I can't be out of touch. Fine. Leave it by the door. Leave it on your bureau. Just don't have it right next to you. Because it's addictive little pull that, like, well, I'll just check. I'll just look on Facebook real quick. Well, yeah, but then now 20 minutes have gone by, and overwhelm comes when you can't tell what's important. Right? That's the feeling of overwhelm. It's like everything's coming at me at once and I can't tell what's important. And that's how the internet is.
Yeah.
It doesn't distinguish between more important and less important. It all just comes at you in a big fire hose.
Do you think we're living a digital curse right now?
No, I think it's a digital blessing. I just think we have to be really careful with it.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
You have to weigh the values of one versus the other.
Well, it's bringing us together. I mean, just a couple of years ago, you and I could never have been having this conversation in the way that we are.
That's true.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So it's like any gift. Fire can either destroy or fire can make us warm and cook our food. And I guess the digital age is the same way.
That's right.
Absolutely. Now, in Start Right Where You Are, your wonderful new book, which was just published, you offer, as you mentioned before, 66 small, easy, doable changes that can lead to big joy. You mentioned one of them. How about sharing a couple more with us right now?
Yeah. So one is, how can I make this moment more me? One is making some 5-minute art about it. Another one I love is this little breathing technique that I learned a million years ago. I don't even know where I learned it. And should we just do it? It's super quick.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Yeah, so we'll just inhale for 4, hold for 7, exhale for 8. And we'll just do that one time, and I'll count us through it.
Okay.
So you just let your belly go really kind of poochy soft.
Absolutely.
And let's inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Exactly. I feel that.
Reminds me of some of the pranayama exercises in yoga. It feels really good.
Yeah. This, like I said, 4, 7, 8. It shows up in a lot of different traditions, and something about the counting of it I find distracting enough. Sort of, I can't worry and count at the same time.
Absolutely.
And sometimes I'll just do it once. Sometimes I'll do it 3 times. Sometimes I'll do it 10 times. I've done it sometimes for hours, when anxiety gets really bad. I hear from insomniacs that it's great for going to sleep. It works wonders in the Trader Joe's parking lot.
My guest this evening on Destination Unlimited, Sam Bennett, author of the book Start Right Where You Are. Sam, please tell our listeners where they can get your book and find out more about you and your wonderful work.
Thank you. Yes, available wherever fine books are sold. And you can also come to startrightwhereyouare.com, startrightwhereyouare.com. And there's a bunch of free resources there and access to the book and all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
Wonderful. And we'll be back with Sam Bennett on Destination Unlimited after these messages from the OMTimes Radio Network.
This is OTR-FM, part of the IOM Radio Network.
Are you in an interfaith relationship and thinking of getting married? For 18 years, Reverend Lori Sue Brockway has been creating personalized, loving, and romantic ceremonies for couples of all faiths and cultural backgrounds. Reverend Lori Sue's sensitivity to the needs of interfaith couples is reflected in the compassionate and inclusive way she addresses the concerns of parents and families. Reverend Lori Sue is also the author of several best-selling books on interfaith weddings and wedding vows. Selected as one of the top interfaith officiants by New York Magazine, Reverend Lori Sue serves couples in the New York metropolitan area and beyond. Find out more at her website, yourinterfaithwedding.com.
Have you ever wondered how to change your love paradigm? The secret key is finding a love partnership, not just a regular connection. How do you find these? Through conscious relationships. Ascending Hearts Dating is a dating site for people like you that believes in second chances and a different type of spiritual connection. Try Ascending Hearts for free today at ascendinghearts.com and change your love paradigm. Ascending Hearts, the premier dating community for the spiritually awake.
And we're back on Destination Unlimited. My guest this evening, Sam Bennett, author of Start Right Where You Are. So we were talking about the 66 small, doable changes that can lead to big changes in our life and big joy. You shared a couple of them. Please share some more.
Yeah, I was thinking about one just this morning, actually, that's worked so well for me, is sometimes I think when we're setting goals, we get a little paralyzed because you don't want to make it too much of a no-brainer because then that's not really a goal. That's just a to-do list. But on the other hand, you don't want to be overly ambitious, right, or set yourself up to fail. So what I recommend is doing actually sort of 3-stage goal setting, kind of good, better, best. First base, second base, home run. And so let's say if I were trying to fill the Start Right Where You Are workshop, I might say, okay, I've got to have 25 people in the workshop. Like, it's not even worth it me to do it for less than that. So I got to have 25. I'd love to have 32. And man, if I got 40, drinks are on me. And then I can keep an eye on it. And as the class is filling, I can go, oh, great. I'm definitely going to hit 25. Oh, look, I'm at 30. Yay, that's a win. Rather than getting 30 and then going, oh, actually, I really kind of wanted 40. It's like, be real. You knew 40 was a stretch. You made it almost to your medium goal. That's great. Celebrate. So setting good, better, best. Not everything has to be a home run all the time.
And by the same token, in retail sales, they use the good, better, best techniques where you have a product that perhaps is a good product. Then they have a product slightly better at a slightly higher price. And then they have the premium product or the luxury product at the highest price. And the idea behind that is you attract people into the store with the good, and then you try to sway them to the better, and perhaps if they have the affordability and they can make the choice, they go to the best. And in a way, you're incentivizing not only the customer in that situation, but in your technique, you're incentivizing yourself to move to that goal, to that higher level of success.
Absolutely, absolutely. And in fact, most studies show that most people will pick the better option. They'll pick that middle option. So for those of you who are in sales or offer things for sale, to have a middle option is make sure that's priced really well, because that's the one that most people are going to take. But you also want to have a higher, more luxury option, because about 20% of the people will want that.
Absolutely.
And if you're not offering it to them, you're shortchanging them and you.
Absolutely.
Well, free business advice from the Organized Artist Company.
There you go. Now, one of the changes you recommend among the 66 is what you call turning complaints into requests. How does that work?
Yeah, that's part of how I was brought up. In my family, in my house growing up, you were not allowed to complain about something unless you had a suggestion or were willing to take responsibility for making it better. Yeah. So the idea is that you come to situations that are troubling with a spirit of positivity and change and taking responsibility. So it's two parts. First of all, notice what a terrible strategy complaining is. It just doesn't work. You complain and nothing changes.
It makes you unhappy and it makes the other person unhappy.
Exactly. It's right up there with nagging. It's just a crappy strategy. It just doesn't work. So let's move on to a more effective strategy. A more effective strategy is, rather than saying, I can't believe you left the wet towel on the bathroom floor again, a better strategy is to say, sweetheart, I'm wondering if you could pick up the towel from the bathroom floor. Right? And you're running the risk that the person may say, no, I won't, because I don't care. Which moves us maybe to the third strategy, which is you just taking responsibility for the towel since you're the one who cares and putting it over the towel rack yourself.
But that's a great idea, because what you're doing is, rather than using negative reinforcement, you're using a positive reinforcement, and sometimes making the other person think that what you're actually doing is creating or bringing out their own idea.
Well, and study after study after study after study shows us that only positive reinforcement works. Mm-hmm. Only positive reinforcement works. It works with dogs. It works with children. It works with spouses. It works with you.
Absolutely.
So the more you can catch people doing it right and underline that behavior, catch yourself doing it right, underline that behavior, reward that behavior, the better and smoother your life is going to be. And it's a beautiful, I have we all sometimes walk around with our, red pen clicked. Well, I would have done that this way. I would have done it this way. I would say this. I would do this. It's yes. So take some action. Take some responsibility.
So let's take, for example, a person who's a writer, an author, and they submit a book, and the book gets a rejection, whatever the rejection, for whatever reason it might be. So they complain, nobody is interested in my books. Nobody wants to read my books. How do I turn that around?
The thing your brain is best at is finding what it's looking for. Pattern recognition. We're great at finding what we're looking for. So if you have a story in your head that says, nobody appreciates what I do, all you will do is find evidence that no one appreciates what you do.
Absolutely.
If you change the story, so the stories now become something like, I can't wait to find the perfect person to publish this book. Well, then the rejection just becomes like, oh, great, that clearly was not my perfect person. Let's keep going.
Wonderful.
Because obviously there's a perfect person out there, so I'm just going to keep going until I find them. And I don't know, how many rejections did J.K. Rowling get on Harry Potter?
A lot.
A lot. I don't remember the number either, but it's like, it was I remember when I read the number, I was like, I don't think I would have persisted that long.
Absolutely. But she had a dream, and she knew that someone would appreciate that dream.
And she single-handedly changed the publishing industry.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So another one of your techniques you call happy grown-up naked time. Now, do we have to join a nudist colony for that?
No. Happy grown-up naked time. Happy grown-up naked time is genuinely, just about taking some time. Here, you know what? I've got a better way to talk about this. Hold your own hands right now. Put one hand in another, or put your hands on your face or your arms.
Okay.
And just feel your own skin for a second. Just feel how warm or cool it is, and the strength of the muscles in your hands and the way your skin feels. Like, your body is an amazing thing. It does so much work for you all the time with no complaints, or hardly any. And mostly all we ever do is criticize it. And so to take a minute just to remember your own physical self, and whether you are in a relationship or not, like, it's not about having sex. It's just about being physical. So take, I don't know, half an hour on a Wednesday evening, once a week, take half an hour to just be naked. Whether, again, either by yourself or with someone else. And again, it's not about having sex, because not everybody can have sex. Not everybody wants to have sex. Some people are too mad to have sex. That's fine. It's really just about reclaiming the intimacy of the body and the enjoyment of the body, and finding, what tickles, what makes you laugh, what feels nice, what, just touching and being touched. It's a beautiful way to cultivate intimacy, both with yourself and with someone you love. And it can be hard to make that, you really have to claim that time. I remember my friend Annie was the primary caregiver for her little boy when he was a toddler, and she would also sometimes look after one of the neighbor kids. And she said by the time Charlie got home at the end of the day, she felt like she was covered with sticky fingerprints. She was like, don't touch me. No one touch me. And this would be a way for moms like Annie to reset a little bit and be like, oh, that's right, I'm an adult woman. Like, I'm not just a mom. I'm not just covered in jam. I'm actually, a person. So that's really what it's about, is just it's happy grown-up naked time. It's just enjoying your physical self, either alone or with someone else.
It almost sounds like the process of self-discovery that as babies, when we explore our bodies and find ourselves and sort of find our own identity. It sounds like that to me.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a really interesting study I found done in Great Britain, I think, where touch, if you slow down the speed of touch, right? So there's the rate at which you might pat an animal or pat a person. If you slow that down to half time to yourself, it actually improves your self-image. It improves your self-concept. So slow self-touch will actually make you feel better about yourself. Isn't that interesting?
That is wonderful, and we remember the studies of the children who were put into orphanage, or their mother had passed, or there was some disconnection between the maternal energy and the child, and that when they're not given that affection as children, the old expression was, if you don't stroke the spine, it'll shrivel up. That concept that we need that touch, whether it be from someone else or from ourselves.
Yeah, there's all, exactly. And anything you wouldn't do to a child, you shouldn't do to yourself either. So if you're walking around touch deprived, this is a great way to fix it. And again, you don't need to have somebody else involved. It's not about that.
Now, many creative people are also highly intuitive, as we discussed, but they're often afraid to follow those intuitions because of what you describe as intuition killers. What are they, and how can we overcome them?
Intuition killers. No one's asked me about this. I'm so pleased. Yes, intuition killers are things like, first of all, just fatigue. Being tired and hungry, like, you're thinking, your intuition just goes to pot. The routine can be a terrible intuition killer, like when you just do the same thing over and over again. So one way to spark your intuition, for example, is just to do something different. Walk on the other side of the street, take a different route to work, order something else off the lunch menu. Like, just shake it up. Like, it sort of wakes up your senses a little bit, and you can start to pay a little more attention to stimulus and to those little tingles, those little ideas, those little half notions that sometimes appear to us. Vicious self-criticism, that'll kill it. What are some other really good intuition killers? I think a lot of entertainment can be an intuition killer. Too much television, too much video games. It just kind of numbs you out after a while.
Ultimately, it's not trusting your feelings. And that's something that can also be wired when we're kids, when we're told, don't use your imagination so much, be more practical. And I think encouraging imagination, encouraging listening to that inner voice is so important. And my guest this evening on Destination Unlimited is Sam Bennett. She's the author of the new book, Start Right Where You Are. And we'll be back with more of Sam and these great ideas after these messages on the OMTimes Radio Net.
The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
Hi, this is Sylvia Henderson, intuitive life coach and energy healer. Are you ready to elevate and rise way above your normal? Be sure to listen to my show, Intuitive Transformations, on OMTimes Radio, Sunday evenings at 9 p.m. Eastern. Get the inspiration you need to transform your life.
Adopt US Kids presents Multiple Choice Parenting.
You're bringing your daughter to a pop concert. Do you A, wear earplugs?
Isn't this fun, Dad?
I have a soft pretzel.
Or B, just roll with it?
Justin! OMG! I love you, Justin! I love you!
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Teens in foster care will love you just the same.
For more information on adoption, visit adoptuskids.org. A message from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
This is Terry Van Horn, and I want to invite you to join me for my weekly radio show, Hailing Light, on OMTimes Radio, every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. On Hailing Light, we want to bring love, light, and blessings into your world. You can find out more about us at www.healinglightonline.com. Blessings.
And we're back on Destination Unlimited. My guest this evening is Sam Bennett. She's the author of the brand new book, Start Right Where You Are. Sam, we often attach negative energy to our perceived incompletions or failures. And you say that the mantra, nothing bad is happening, is helpful. How does that work?
Yeah, this is okay. So now we're going to spiritual development graduate school. Like this is the advanced class. But to consider the phrase "nothing bad is happening," particularly when it looks like something bad is happening, particularly when there's been a mistake or an oversight or an error or things are not good. You know, something's happening that we don't want to have happen, and I find the phrase "nothing bad is happening" does a couple of things. One, it reminds me that we're in a benevolent universe, right? And that I have the capacity to stay calm, to stay centered, no matter what is happening. It also encourages me to get a little more precise in my language, because if nothing bad is happening, well, what is happening? You know, maybe it's something inconvenient, or maybe it's something unexpected, or maybe it's something that's just not the way I would have done it, right?
Absolutely.
But it doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad. So that helps. I remember one time I was in a horrible, so talking about the airplane counter, like I was in this horrible travel things. It was the mechanical problems, delays, missed flight, lost baggage, whole thing. And this woman walked by me on her cell phone. And she was having the same, bad experience. And she says into her cell phone, "Well, we're trapped at the airport. This is a nightmare." and I was so glad I heard her say that, because I immediately thought like, well, it's not a nightmare. I mean, again, it's inconvenient. It's not what I would have picked, but we're here. We're safe. We're warm. Like, nothing bad is happening. We're fine. And again, being able to, go through the rest of that very long day with the attitude that, like, nothing bad is happening. Like,
absolutely.
It's
a speed bump, an inconvenience. It's not bad, because the concept of bad, putting a negative charge on something, really ruins it for us, doesn't it?
Well, and here's the hard truth of it is, it's what's happening.
Yeah.
So whether it's bad or good, your judgment doesn't make it go away. So find a way to have it be, there's no alternate reality in which this isn't happening. So if it's happening, then let's deal with it happening. It also causes me to not stress out, in that same vein, about things that aren't happening. I remember they wanted me back at the doctor's for some more tests one time. We've all gotten that call. We'd like to see you again. We're not happy. We see a shadow. We're not happy. And I'm like, okay, fine, but nothing bad is happening. I make the appointment. 2 weeks later, I go in. They poke, they prod. It's an all-day thing. And they're all walking around very serious faces. And, now we need to do this, and now we need to do that. I'm like, fine, but nothing bad is happening. And about halfway through the day, I thought, gosh, I hope nothing bad is happening. Like, I'll feel kind of silly, if there's some terrible diagnosis. But then I thought, if there's some terrible diagnosis, well, then we'll deal with that. That happens to people all the time, right? It's just another opportunity. It's just another something. And it turned out at the end of the day that nothing bad was happening. But I know people who would have spent 2 weeks worrying and then the whole day stressing themselves out over something that wasn't even real.
It's a very Zen approach, and a lot of us have this tendency to catastrophize for whatever reason. I don't know if it's something that is ingrained in us as children or just something that we come upon because of life's episodes and incidents. But the idea being is that whatever it is, and we take what it is and we work with it. And it's something that sometimes it's within our span of control and sometimes it's not within our span of control. But it's the reality of what we're facing right now. And so rather than put the negative energy and this is terrible and horrible and catastrophic, turn it around and say, okay, where do we go from here? And I think that's the key to doing this right.
Exactly. It's and I'm not saying, put on pink sunglasses and that, like, it's all good, everything happens for a reason. Like, that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying to sugarcoat everything that's happening. I'm just saying, don't catastrophize and really look for the opportunity. Really look for the invitation, because everything that looks like a problem is actually your personal invitation to be a better person, to be a better communicator, to be a better parent, to be a better citizen, to be a better business owner, to be a better source of love and light on the planet, whatever it is you're into. Every problem you face gives you that opportunity to grow and grow and grow. So, stop complaining.
Absolutely. I'll
take
share
the opportunity to step.
I'll share a quick story that happened to me recently. My wife is a wedding officiant and an interfaith minister, and she was doing a wedding at this beautiful park here in Staten Island, New York, a few weeks ago. And I went to pick her up. It was about 7:30, 7:45 in the evening, and parked in the parking lot and was trying to find her. And it was sort of warm. It was a warm evening, an uncomfortable evening. And I went searching for her, and I couldn't find her where I thought she would be. And I started getting a little bit upset about it. And then eventually I was able to rendezvous with her, and we got into the car, and I put my key into the car, turned the key, and the car would not start. the battery was dead. And I have never, the battery is 2 or 2.5 years old, never had an issue, never had a starting problem. And I said, okay, where do we go from here? And then I started looking for people to possibly get a boost from, and people had some excuses. I don't have cables, or I'm sorry, I have to leave right now, something to that effect. And it is what it is, and I don't question when people are saying things like that. And then I happened to run into this very nice young man who was one of the security guards on the property. And he had actually helped us find where the area was when I dropped my wife off for this wedding. And I explained my situation. I said, is there any way we can get a boost from you? He said, well, my dad's actually going to come and pick me up, and he'll give you a boost. I said, great, thank you. And so we were waiting by the car, and he came over, and he says, listen, he says, my dad actually can't get out of the car. He's not well, but I'll help you, and we'll get this thing started. I said, thank you. I said, what's wrong with your dad? Well, he had just had dialysis this morning, and he's not well, and his energy is low. And I said, okay. So when his dad finally showed up, I walked over and I thanked him. I said, this is magnanimous of you. Well, he said, I'm going to come out and pick up my son anyway. And I said, I'm a minister also. I'm an interfaith minister. Would you mind if I would pray for you and pray for your health? And he said, thank you. I would greatly appreciate that. And I stood with him for a moment and had a bit of prayer with him. And then his son found the jumper cables, and we boosted the car, and it started right up. And I went over and I thanked them, and I offered to send some money, and he didn't want it, and I insisted that he accept. And then the father said to me, can I talk to you for a second? He says, yeah, would you mind sending a letter to my son's supervisor just acknowledging what I said, absolutely, that's the least that I could do. And I did that, and I felt very good about helping them and praying for them, and I was grateful for what they had done for my wife and I. And I figured I'd have to go the next day and get a new battery. And next morning, the car started right up, and I took it to the auto store, and the guy says, your battery's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. So what happened there was an opportunity to turn a very negative situation, something that was annoying, into something very beautiful and positive. And I think that quite often in life, we have to look for those opportunities.
Yeah, everybody got a boost.
It was a spiritual boost, absolutely. It was a spiritual boost. And a week later, just as a postscript to the story, a week later I was in a parking lot, and I came out and I saw a woman who was parked next to me with her hood up, trying to get her car started, and she had a little jumper device that wasn't working. And I said, do you need a boost? And she said, absolutely. And I said, I'll take care of it for you. And I happened to have my cables with me that day, and I gave her the boost. And I said, this is paying it forward. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. So again, turning a negative into a positive.
That's right. That's right.
Absolutely. Now, when making changes, decluttering our space is suggested as a helpful technique, but you have a special take on decluttering. Please share that with our listeners.
Yeah. So clutter, whether it's, physical clutter or mental clutter, is it's the residue of old decisions. It's the residue of old decisions. And I think one of the reasons it's hard for us to get rid of clutter sometimes is because we hate to be wrong. We love to be right, and we hate to be wrong. And so you see the yellow coat that you spent $300 on that doesn't really fit and never really looked that great to begin with. And you have the debate with yourself every time of I never wear this coat. And then you think, oh, but I spent so much money on it, and it was such a good deal, and I thought it was such a good idea at the time. And then you just get trapped in that little eddy, right? There's this little, you sort of can't move past that. And this has to do with what economists call sunk costs, which is very difficult for a person to understand because it has to do with that logical side of our brain that this is one of the places where logic is great. So a sunk cost says you're not getting the $300 back, right? You spent the money on the coat. It's happened. It's done. It's gone. Hanging onto the coat does not bring the $300 back. On the other hand, releasing the coat out into the world where someone who looks great in yellow can find it and it can go on to fulfill its destiny as a coat. This is a good thing. And then you free up the energy that you're otherwise going oh, God, I wish I hadn't bought that. I bought that coat. I thought it was a good idea, and it's not. No, let it go. And I don't know, Victor. I mean, I see this so many times where people tell me oh my gosh, I cleaned out the garage and my sister-in-law who's owed me $2,000 for the last 5 years just paid me back. Or
creating the vacuum, because nature hates a vacuum and wants to fill it with something especially nice.
health is flow, right? The Chinese say that health is flow. We want air to flow. We want nutrition to flow. We want love to flow. We want money to flow. When you get rid of that stuck energy, you've got a lot more flow, and it's amazing how it lifts your spirits and how new things, unexpected things come. Like I cleaned out the spare closet and met the love of my life. Like,
there you go.
Are those things related? I don't know either, but I can tell you I hear about it all the time.
66 easy to follow and fun steps to turning your goals and your dreams into reality. What would you like your readers to take away from Start Right Where You Are?
This is your moment. Right now. It's all we get. And we don't know how many of them we have stacked up ahead of us. You know, this is a one-way street. So don't wait. Don't wait to be happy. Don't wait to do the things you love. Don't wait to start participating fully in your life. Now. We need you now.
Absolutely. Sam Bennett, where can listeners find your book and find out more about you and the great work that you do?
StartRightWhereYouAre.com. Or you can come visit me at theorganizedartistcompany.com. All the way spelled out, because I must spell it out for you kind of a girl. So it's theorganizedartistcompany.com.
Thank you so much for joining us and sharing all of this wonderful work. And I'm sure something else is going to be coming from you great in the not-too-distant future. Please come back and share that at that time.
I'd love to. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thanks for joining us tonight on Destination Unlimited. I'm Victor the Voice Furman. Have a wonderful week, and we'll see you next week. Good night now.